Hello and welcome to Stories That Shape Us. My name is Joanna Daniel. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. Today, I have a very special guest. We were just talking about how we met and we can't remember, so it's that long ago. And so I want us to welcome Kashina to Stories That Shape Us. We're going to have a conversation that is just a carry on of conversations that we've had over years, perhaps. Um, Kashina is the founder of Preparing the Home, and she helps families to be organized. I think, and much more. Kashina will tell us some more about what she does. And she's a homeschooling mom of multiples. Kashina has triplets, three beautiful girls, and she has a son as well. And she's a trainee counselor, nearly done. Next by this episode goes out, Kashina would have finished all of her hours. We're coming in agreement, Kashina.
Amen.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about Preparing the Home before we go into our conversation?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Joanna. So Preparing the Home is predominantly for parents, mums, dads, and it's just a place where you can simplify life so that you can build stronger connections with your family. So one of the things that I realized was people want to be able to connect more with their family, but with everything going on, it became really difficult. So you have the routine side where you simplify life, get into those simple routines. And in those simple routines, we have family traditions, mummy time, daddy time, all these lovely things that allow families to be able to bond and grow stronger together.
Bond and grow stronger together, which leads us on to what we're talking about today. We're talking about the impact of connecting or attachment with your children and some of the challenges that comes with that. So tell us about why that is important, Kashina, that we have close connection with our children.
I think that in general, um,
Mm,
families nowadays, especially recently with technology, with working more hours, especially since COVID, where everyone's trying to figure out how they're going to pay for everything because everything's gone up. Parents and children are spending less and less time together. I actually saw a
yeah,
video and she was saying that in a day, a parent will spend on average 35 minutes.
minutes.
35 minutes. And by spending time, she's not talking about you're present in the house because that's not actually spending time with your child or
No,
whether they're old or young. She's talking about actually sitting down, having a conversation,
yeah,
actually interacting with them,
yes.
talking to them and looking them in their face rather than looking at your phone while you're having a conversation with them. 35 minutes out of a 24-hour day is shocking.
That is scary even for me because as you're talking in my head I'm going through because I'm at home, but doing work sometimes. The children are in classes, they're with tutors, we're doing things, we're at home, but we're doing things. And so that's why it's so important to have meals at the table. Like we,
Yes.
we sit and sometimes we have breakfast together sometimes because they start classes at different time, but we have dinner together on a Sunday. I want us to have meals together. On a Sabbath morning, we have meals together. And a Friday evening, sometimes I set a very special table for us to have meals together, just finding time. And on a Sunday, like, let's go for a walk. We're like, we can do other things except walking, Mom. Come up with something that don't cost anything and we'll do it.
Do you know what? How it's just so important to really make time for that. And I think that's
Yeah,
the reason why the routine side comes in, because if
yeah.
you don't schedule in the time or you don't intentionally make the time to connect with your children, it's not going to happen
Mm-hmm.
because so many other things will take place.
Mm,
Washing. Everybody has a whole mountain of clothes to wash.
yes.
If you're working, tidying up the house, running to this activity, to the next activity, and before you know it, it's 5 o'clock, it's time for dinner. And if you don't have that time around the table, then you're watching TV. You're not even interacting then either.
Yeah.
And it's bedtime. And then we start the
Yes.
cycle all over again.
Yes.
It
Yes.
requires being intentional. And I think with connection, with anything, like for those that are in a relationship, you didn't just see your partner and just say, oh, yes, I'm connected to you now. I want to marry you. No, you intentionally called each other and you intentionally spent time with each other. And then you intentionally did things together to get to know each other more. And that's exactly the same thing that we need to do with our family and with our children. We have to be intentional about it. Otherwise, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. So you said routine is one of the ways that, tell us about some of the ways that routine can help. And how do you use routine? Just the word routine might make some people feel stressed or think that it's boring, or a busy mom, how can routine help her to connect?
Yeah, it can. It can trigger some people. So I think with routine, it's more about your rhythm and your flow.
Yeah.
Routines aren't supposed to be rigid. They're not supposed to be set and stuck. Routines are a way for you to be able to put in place what's important. So I like to have anchor points. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Those are my anchor points, and bedtime. Everything goes in between that. So for those that are working, you might have to work for the majority of the day and you might not be able to do something with your children every day. But if you say, I don't know, Mondays is mummy day and you have that mummy time with them.
Yeah.
We have 4 kids. It takes a lot longer to get through all the children to have your mummy time. So we have to plan. Literally, we have a big calendar on our wall and they see it, we see it. And once the kids can see that they've got mummy time or there's something special happening, you can't rub it off. Because if you try to rub it off, they'll come in and be like, where's it gone? You said. So actually being intentional and putting it in. And as soon as you tell your children that it's in, have to do it. And like you said, it doesn't have to be expensive. No. It could be something cheap. It could be ideally something, I always try to say something that you want to bring your children into. So something you enjoy that you want to bring your children into so that they can learn about you as well. It's important for them to know about you, what you like and who you are. And likewise, also being able to do something that your children enjoy, where you go into their space and into their world. And even that, if that includes sitting down, playing Barbies for half an hour, we're going to play Barbies like we love Barbies. And we're really going to get involved in their world.
Yeah. So something that you like so the children get to know you, and something that they like so you're getting to know them. You're going into their world. So you're connecting not from the outside, but from the inside. Because I don't think we can connect from the outside. We have to go in their world in order to connect, because we get to know them.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm also aware that maybe there'll be people listening, and I get it because this was me, where you may not have had that connection growing up.
Absolutely.
And because you didn't have that connection, you really find it difficult, uncomfortable, awkward. I'll be very honest. When the girls were younger, one of the things that I didn't hear often was "I love you," and so connecting in that way and being able to say "I love you" was just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did was when they were babies and they couldn't hear how uncomfortable I was sounding and feeling, I would practice saying, "Mommy loves you, I love you," and I could cringe at that point because they can't see, or hopefully they don't remember. Yeah. So until it became natural. And I think for those who haven't experienced connection in that way from their parents maybe, or their grandparents, whoever raised them, one, it's important. I think it's important to be able to get support with that. And the reason why I think it's important is if we don't figure out what's going on for ourselves, we will just pass on this broken, non-connected relationships with our children to their grandchildren and the grandchildren. Somebody has to break that somewhere. And it is uncomfortable and it's hard and painful and it's a struggle. And some days you don't want to do it. But when you have in your mind the end goal and you can see what kind of relationship you want to have with your children 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now,
Yeah.
it helps to put in that work.
It does. It puts it in perspective then when you know what you want to achieve with it. So you're talking about some of the obstacles to connection, but I wanted to go back to the anchor points that
Mhm.
you mentioned for the person who is busy, who wants to connect, who it might even be a challenge and a struggling, wondering how am I going to do it? I have these many children. How do I do it? You're saying anchor points helps with routine. You have anchor points for your day, and those help you to put some routine in that helps you to intentionally connect with your children.
Yeah. So the anchor
Yeah.
points are set. We can move them 30 minutes either way, but ideally you want it to be set. You want your kids to know what time breakfast, lunch, and dinner is. It also
Yeah.
saves the whole, Mummy, I'm hungry. Is it 12
Yes.
o'clock yet? 12:30? So that helps. And then you're not shouting at them because you're now frustrated because they've asked so many times, which then ruptures the relationship and causes a disconnect. So all of
Mm-hmm.
that actually helps with building that connection when you can have that peaceful home as much as
Yes,
possible. It's
it
never going to be
does.
perfect. They're kids and we're
Yeah.
all human. You have emotions. But once the anchor points are there, then everything in between it kind of flows. So some days you might just spontaneously go out somewhere, or you might have every Tuesday, I spend an hour with child number one. And every Wednesday, I spend an hour with child number two because I can't fit all of them in one day. It's not
Yeah.
about beating yourself up about it. It's about being
No.
realistic with the time that you have, the
Sure.
resources you have. Some people in single homes, it's even harder because then there's nobody to have the other children. So I
Sure.
know one of my clients, what she does is she takes them out at bedtime. She'll put them all to bed, and then whoever is having the mummy time at that time gets to come downstairs with mummy, and she'll do an activity with them. They get to stay up half an hour later than the others, and then they go to bed and mummy has her time again. But they have that one-to-one time with her, and they look forward to that one-to-one time with her as well.
Yeah. That's so intentional. And I bet it settles the children too, because sometimes children will get anxious or play up and it looks like behavior problem and all they want is some connecting time.
100%.
They
100%.
just they just want to connect. They want an opportunity to have a conversation or to tell you something or like the trivia you were just hearing as we come in just now. And I had no idea what but that was trivia because sometimes they will tell us in different ways that
Mhm.
they want to connect through sometimes behavior that appear bad, and I'm going to put that
Mhm.
in quotes, because everything is an attempt to connect. It's
Yeah.
it like it is in our romantic relationships. Everything in a relationship is about connection. I want to connect with you. I want to talk to you. I want to spend some time with you. And so our children will do it in different ways that might look disruptive, that might shift us out of our routine. We have
Mhm.
set things, and these are the many things that we have to do because we don't have a lot of time. And they come and do something upsetting to us because it stirs us out of our kind of focus, but they just want to talk to us.
Yeah. Any attention is good attention, as long
Any
as they
attention.
get the attention.
There you go. Any attention is good attention. So we have to make sure that we give good attention often so they're used to it. Just
Mhm.
hang out, just laugh. And what I find is that children get to a certain stage where they change.
Mm.
Like my son, the 16, the twins, are 16 now, and my son used to talk, 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 talk. He could talk for England and Wales, but he got to this age where he stopped talking.
Mm.
Just in the car, and we used to have one-on-one time, and he just stopped talking. He just wasn't talking as much anymore, and I was worried because we used to say, "He's a talker. Stop talking." I used to give time out. Time out for him was painful because he couldn't talk. So, but we're driving last week. We're going to his exams, and our conversation have shifted. It's changed. The topics have changed, and
Mm.
now we can have this deeper conversation, and I'm noticing it going, wow, this is amazing. We're talking about different things, and
Yeah.
because I understand him and he understands me, and we know each other, but I so value the opportunity to have conversations with them.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of work in the early years to get to that place where we can talk about things um, with depth.
Yeah,
With
exactly.
depth.
And just before we were talking about how, oh, I'm really excited. So our girls are 9. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh, I'm really excited about the next stage. Like,
Yeah.
because the conversation will be different. We're not talking about dolls anymore. We get to
Yeah.
talk about different things and deeper things. But I think you made a really good point. That doesn't just happen. And I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that, oh, they're just going to be obedient. Oh, they're just going to eat their vegetables. Oh, we're just going to have this deep, really meaningful conversation when they
No.
turn 13 or 16, and it's just going to miraculously happen. But
No. It's
actually, it starts years and years and years before, and
yeah.
being really consistent in building those connections and being
Absolutely.
present and talking with them, even if at a younger age, for those who have younger kids,
Mm-hmm.
his son is 6. He always wants to play pups. It's this game he made up with his teddy bears. He just wants to play pups, but actually that's his way of connecting with whoever's
Mm-hmm.
playing with him. If we
Mm-hmm.
choose not to then connect with them on that level in their world at the age that they're at, they're not going to want to connect,
No.
be with, listen to, anything with.
No. They won't invite us into their world when they're older.
Mm,
So for those who, I mean, it's never too late to start to try to connect. Never too late. But when you have we have an advantage when they're younger because they will want you in their world.
yeah.
Go in to their world at that age because when they get older, then you're naturally a part of their world. Because the conversation is ongoing, it's natural then. And I know lots of parents have children that are old and said, "Well, they never talk to me. We don't know what's happening." And keep trying. Don't stop because they really do want it still. It's just that they're not trusting it at the moment as you're starting, but keep trying. So let's talk about some of the obstacles, Kashina. I know that you enjoy really close connection with your children. You guys are very intentional. You work at it. Work. We know it's work. It's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's not easy. It's work. You know, the scripture that I keep in mind is let us not be weary in well doing. In due season we shall reap if we faint not.
Yes.
So
Yes.
reaping will come. But you talked about some challenges and obstacles that we have to connect. And you mentioned one of them being time. I think time is an obstacle when
Huge.
parents are busy, we're working, we're out of the home for so many hours every day. Half an hour with a child per day is an obstacle to connection. What are some of the other obstacles that parents we might experience on this road to building secure connection with our children?
I think currently technology
Oh
is
yes, big one,
huge,
massive.
huge. As much as we would like to say that it's the children that's addicted to technology, I think parents and adults are just as much. And I know for
Yeah,
me, myself, I have to constantly check myself. I recently
yeah,
actually put on my phone this minimalist app where everything's just black. It's just the most basic, boring thing there because what it was saying is
right.
all these lovely colors entices you to keep on wanting to go to your phone. So now it's just
Yeah,
black. And I have to keep scrolling to try and find what I need because I recognize that actually, yes, I might be on my phone for business and I am on my phone for business a lot of the time, but
hmm,
I need to use my phone and technology the same way I want my children to. One of
yeah,
the things that I hear a lot is they're always on their phone or they're
yeah,
just playing Xbox in their room and they don't come downstairs to have a conversation. We have to
hmm,
be role models so that they
yeah,
can see what's expected in the home. I always talk about in my house, especially, like we don't want any hypocrites here. So if I'm
yeah,
asking you
yeah.
to do something, I'm going to have to do it as well. So I think
Model it.
we have to model it. We have to model it. And so we have to really be aware of technology. So I'm not against having movie night as a family activity. But the reality is in that movie night, you're still not talking and you're not really connected. So maybe
No,
being mindful even of the things or the activities that you're doing. Cinema, great, cool, but you're not really connecting. What
no,
can you do that allows you to still connect? And that might be having a set time where there's no phones at all for anyone,
yeah,
including the
yeah,
adults.
Yeah.
or using it after they've gone to bed.
Yes.
So I think technology really does play a big part in making
Yeah.
everyone more distant.
It is. Yeah.
And we have to
Yeah.
really
We're in a
think
world.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a massive one now. I did a course a couple of years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, about some of the challenges to attachment in a digital age, really big challenges that we have with social media and the phones. And, but I think we can take the phones away, we can take social media away, but there are other obstacles that social media was using as a, because sometimes social media is a not only a barrier, but it's also a coping strategy.
Yes.
Because if you're not connecting with me, then I have all these people on Snapchat to talk to,
Mhm.
and if you're not doing anything with me, then we can play games together, we can talk together. So when we're taking away social media, we have to be available for connection. And sometimes there's another obstacle there where we are not available because we didn't have that kind of connection that
Exactly.
we desire with our children.
Or even knowing what connection looks like. Like
Absolutely.
we're throwing out the word connection like it means something to everybody, but what does connection even look like for you or
Mm,
for me? What is a healthy connection? Maybe you grew up in an unhealthy connection that you think is normal, because as much as we want to be in our children's world and we want our children to be in our world and we want to spend time together, too much of that is also detrimental, where we suffocate them or we don't allow them to grow and to to become their own. So
yeah.
knowing what connection is and what healthy connection is also really important, I think.
So I mean, we're halfway through, but let's define it. Like, we're talking about secure connection, where there's a free flow in the relationship, where we're comfortable with time together and time alone. When the child is in need, it is met. When they have, when they cry, they know somebody's there to meet
Yeah.
that need, and that takes time and work to be that present as a parent, to be available to respond to the cries, whatever the cries look like, to be able to respond to it, to be intentional with spending time with the child, so that when you're with them or when you're not with them, they still feel
Yeah.
connected to you, they still feel some level of connection to you. So healthy connection looks like boundaries as well. Healthy connection looks like respect. Healthy connection looks like being able to meet somebody's needs. Healthy connection looks like they can come and cry with me, and I'm not telling them, stop crying. Why are you crying? There's nothing to cry for. There's nothing to cry for. Um,
Yeah.
healthy connection looks like the ability to be empathetic to the child that is distressed, even if the distress is caused by us. It
Yeah.
also looks like apologizing when we've done something wrong. So we're building trust in
Mhm.
relationship. It looks like following through and doing something when you said you're going to do it, and if you can't
Yeah.
do it, apologize when you're not able to do it, because sometimes we're not always able to
Yeah.
to do it. It looks like responding to a need when it's requested. Sometimes, yesterday evening, my son wanted to go, and I don't always get it right, but it's my highest value, I always say. So I work at it. My son wanted to go play basketball. Now I can't play basketball. I don't even try, but I can take him to the basketball field and I can be
Mhm.
with him. So I was doing some work and I needed to finish. So I took the laptop with me, sit in the car while he plays basketball. He has his time, and we chatted in the car and can come back home. So it looks like responding to a need that might sometimes take you outside of your comfort zone. You might have to
Mhm.
stop what you're
Mhm.
doing. Sometimes I have to shut it, put it away, and not take it with me and go. Um, it looks like when they ask for, can you go for a walk with me? Go for a walk. So it's a lot of it's sacrifice, I think, as well for
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
We have things to do, but
Literally. Literally.
but consider that as something to do. It looks like, as Kashina said earlier, going into their world. Going into their world looks like learning what they're interested in, Now, the challenge is you might not agree with what they're interested in, but you're going into their world to tell them why from inside.
Mm.
So I remember we don't listen to certain kind of music, right? And I remember my son was listening to this song, and he said, "Mom, I know you don't listen to this kind of music, but listen to this." And I'm like, so I'm listening to it, and this guy was telling a story. He was really talking history, and I'm like, "What?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very creative way of sharing our history."
Mm-hmm.
So he was really sharing our history. So creative, so creative. He was doing it. So I thought, so that's going inside, you
Mm.
know. So that's what the healthy connection looks like, and of course, much, much more. But when we're saying connection and we're talking about the importance of it, that's what we're doing. And just another thing on that, Kashina, as you know, it gives children a secure place from which to explore the world. It
Yes.
makes them feel safe. It makes them feel loved. It makes them feel accepted. It makes them feel that they can do anything. It gives courage. It gives a sense of well-being. It says I belong. It says it
Mm.
those things that are really good foundational things that we need to explore the world.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, I mean, all of that, and I know I said it earlier, is it doesn't just happen. And I think
No.
these are things that we also need to tell our children and let them know the reasons why we're doing this. I remember having a conversation with, uh, we were upstairs. I can't remember how the conversation came about, but I wanted to let the children know that whatever goes on in the world, when you come back home, this is the safe space. And we might not always agree with each other, but what we will do is we're going to learn to hear what the other person is saying and be able to empathize with what they're saying, even if we don't agree with it. So
Yeah.
despite what happens out here, because the
Right.
world is crazy, the world is
Oh
real
yeah.
crazy. When you come home, the whole family, and I know I've been talking about connections with the parent and the child, but I want also my kids to have the same connections, to be able to, like, the whole family is so connected, and the relationship is so strong that they know that they have a safe place to come back to.
Yeah.
They have a
Absolutely.
home. They do belong here. They don't have
Yeah.
to look for that elsewhere.
No, and it gives security. It gives
Mm,
it gives stability. It
yeah,
just it just makes them feel whatever is going on, I'm going home.
yeah,
Um, you
yeah,
know, and home doesn't have to mean we have fancy things. It just means the people that love me are there.
yes, yeah. And I was thinking about this the other day as well, and from a biblical perspective, God just wants to connect with us.
Yes,
That's it. Like,
that's it.
he just wants to have that connection with us. The reason why he sent Jesus down to die for us, he wanted to reestablish that connection. He created us to have connection. When he created Adam, he's like, oh, hold on a second, let me get you Eve. Like, this connection so built into us. And
Yeah.
so when we miss it or we don't intentionally work at it, there's a part of people that's missing. There's
Mm,
something that's not there. The same way we have this longing to be close to God, and God has this longing to be close to us, the same way as parents, it's important for us to have a longing to be close to our kids, the same way our kids naturally have a longing to be close to us. From baby, they want to be close to the mom as much as everybody else wants to go hug the baby. That's cool, but the baby's going to cry because the baby wants their
yeah.
mom.
Yeah. There's one that is so good, and I always like to connect attachment to our relationship to Christ, because sometimes we miss that piece, and I think it's so important. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. There's one obstacle that I am passionate about because of my experience that I want to mention here, and it's when attachment is broken because of medical reasons.
Mm,
Um, Either you had to be in the hospital and the babies went home, or the babies were in special care, or a baby stayed in special care and you went home, which was our story, where our daughter stayed in special care for 3 weeks and we went home. And that was broken connection. And I didn't understand the depth of it at the time
Yeah.
when it was happening. I knew something was wrong. I knew that this was going to be hard. I didn't know why.
Mm.
Um, and God is so merciful. He is so merciful, and as much I didn't know as much then as I know now about attachment and broken attachment, and I didn't know having twins that sometimes that is an issue. And read some research that set me free. That okay, so this is not out of the normal. This is normal. This is what it looks like. This is how you fix it. But just to be aware that because a mom can suffer with a lot of guilt when she don't understand why she not feeling close
Yeah.
to a child. And it's not only broken attachment to medical reasons, it's postnatal depression, it's traumatic birth.
Yes.
When you've had trauma, sometimes we're re-traumatized giving birth, and all of those things can create obstacles to connection,
Mm.
where we're not feeling the warm fuzzy feeling that everybody else talk about. And then what do? We don't have to give up. You don't have to give up. You can still experience a depth of connection,
Yeah.
because despite those early start with the children.
No, I totally agree. And we had a very similar situation. And it wasn't until with the triplets, one of them was in hospital for longer.
Mm.
And I didn't even realize that there was an issue. It wasn't until she was about 2. And then I thought, I am actually snappier towards her. Like, I don't really want her close to me. And like you said, you have all of that guilt that comes along with it.
Oh yeah.
And it was actually when I started doing my counseling course, my level 3 counseling course. I can't remember what he said, but something clicked and I was like, oh, that separation that happened at the beginning really did affect a lot of things. And maybe this is the reason why I'm finding it harder. And like you said, it doesn't mean that there's no hope. It meant I had
No.
to work harder at the connection with her. And I had to be
Yes.
even more intentional. And I had
Yes.
to learn to sit with the uncomfortable at a greater depth than the others.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
had a goal. I didn't want her to feel that I didn't
Yes.
love her. I didn't want her to not have that connection. And I recognized that the only way to get to that point is to keep persevering a little bit at a time. And some days were better than others.
Yeah.
And I would reflect. I started reflecting at the end of the days. How did I actually do today? Like what actually went on? What did I feel? Why did I feel it? What did she do that made me okay, so what can we do differently? What can I do tomorrow that will be able to build on that rather than being
Yeah.
stuck in the I really messed
Yeah.
up today. I'm really
Yeah.
bad. I'm not a good mom. It's
Yes.
never gonna happen.
Yes. Yes. The guilt. The guilt. I
Mm.
think sometimes it makes us overcompensate, put too much this way or too much that way. It's like, can I find the middle where I'm not
Yes.
compensating, or
Literally.
you know,
Yeah.
can I find the middle? I find for me, counseling training really helped as well. And I know everybody who are listening to this won't be doing counseling training, and that's how we're sharing our experience and how important it is. Because I was doing the stages of biological development when I realized that she's okay.
Mm.
She's okay. But you are not okay. I realized then that I wasn't okay. I was still left back in a hospital ward, and I wasn't
Mhm.
okay, but she was fine. Because when I looked at the stage of biological development and what should be happening in terms of connection at that age, I'm like, she's fine. You've done
Yeah.
the work. You spotted it. You're correcting it. You've done the work, but you are not okay. And so sometimes moms, parents check in with you. Are you
Mm.
okay? Because the guilt can beat us up so much that it makes us not focus on ourselves and focus on the fact that you're doing it, and you're doing well, and it's paying off and it's working, and you just need to step back and breathe and look after yourself, and maybe get help for you. Find
Yes.
somewhere to process the experience, so that you can come out of the past and not allow the brain to trip you up and send you back into a place of guilt and shame, and you had nothing to do with them being in hospital. It wasn't your fault, or you being in hospital, or the postnatal depression, or the traumatic birth. It wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything you want to say next, Kashina, as we wrap up?
I just feel like it's really important and you mentioned it, it's okay to get help. It's okay
Oh
to get
yeah.
help. When we were talking earlier, I'm doing a counseling course, I'm almost finished. But when I first went to my counseling course, which was mandatory, I didn't have a choice. I kind of sat there and I was like, well, I'm here because they told me to be here. And I've got 40 hours. Let's
I'm
make
fine.
this really. Yeah.
But I'm absolutely fine. I don't
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. I've been fine all this time. To find out that actually maybe there's a few things that are and 40 hours later I'm like, oh, but actually it's been such an amazing experience, just being able to understand, for example, why I felt really uncomfortable when they were too close, when they were touching or hugging. Like you said, you start to beat yourself up about, but I'm supposed to naturally feel this way because that's what everyone says, right? And when you don't, you feel like the worst mom.
You're the worst woman ever. Yeah.
So
That's not true.
okay. It's not. It really isn't. And actually, one of the things that was quite freeing for me was the good enough mother. When I was like,
I'm just, yeah. Yeah. Some days I'm amazing. Some days I'm just enough. I'm just, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
But if you notice that there is something that doesn't feel right, it doesn't sit right, do something. Get the help. Reach out. You might not feel like counseling is the way for you. You might decide to read a book that's recommended. You might decide to speak to a family friend who you can trust, who gives sound advice. Not all of them do, that can give sound advice.
Not all of them do. Just remember that. Yeah.
But don't just expect things to change.
Yeah, it won't. It won't. I used to have a lot of conversations with my friend, like, and I praise God that they provided that space for me to just ramble on in, because I was trying to make sense of what was happening and what I needed to do to fix it. So as Kashina said, read a book. There are many books on attachment. Attached is one by Peter Levine. Healing Attachment Injuries is one by Diane Poole Heller. There is one by Susan Johnson called Attached, but I don't remember the exact. Attachment Theory, I think it's called. And it's called that, but it's easy to read. It's not a hard read. So those are the ones that I can think about now. I wrote Help My Son's a Teenager, How I Use Connection to Make It Through the Teen Years. So if your children are in the teen years, that might be one to consider as well.
Or even just before the teen years as well. Don't wait till the teens come. Like, read it before if you've got pre-teens. Yes.
Don't wait till the teen years. And you know what? The strategy can work for whatever age. I wrote it when he turned 13, and I noticed this shift. I'm like, whoa, what's happening here? So definitely don't wait till the teen years. No. But there's lots of resources around attachment. I have at Wounds Scars, we have an attachment challenge. It's a 21 days attachment challenge. One audio every day for 21 days with give you ideas. And one of the first things I say in the challenge is, and I tell them to do this every day, is to hug for 5 seconds and says, how are you feeling? And ask, how are you feeling? And I hear that there was one mom that didn't make it past day one because she struggled to hug. So that needs, I feel that needs therapy, not just a conversation, because there's a reason. Because
Yeah.
some of us don't experience safe touch, and so touch,
Mhm.
touch, touch is an issue. Touch is an issue. So
And needed for
yeah,
children. It's needed for the children.
yeah,
So if that is
yes,
a struggle for you and a challenge for you, like Joanna said,
yes,
it's okay to get the support and the help.
absolutely. It is okay to get the support and the help to be able to do it, because they need it.
Mm-hmm. They
They
do.
really do. They really do need it. And it, one of the some of the benefits. Let's talk about some of the benefits as we wrap up of connection. It gives them confidence.
Mm.
It boosts their self-esteem. It gives them a sense of belonging, and it grounds them in who they are as as a person, as an
Mhm.
individual. It makes them say it. It says you are enough,
Yeah,
and I love you, and I'm so happy that you're here. It's a powerful message.
literally, literally, and one that will stay with them as they grow. That
Yeah,
they can then pass on to their children. It's a change of legacy. It's a breaking of
yeah,
generational cycles. It's deep.
absolutely. It's deep. And they got in the world different people because
Hmm.
they know that they're enough and they will.
Yes.
So we could say so much more about connection, so much more.
You could write another book.
We, we could, if you have questions, you can, woundsthescars.com, you can send us a message via the website or via any one of my social media pages. Wounds to Scars on Facebook, Wounds to Scars one on Instagram. Kashina, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and contact you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Preparing the Home, on Facebook as well at Preparing the Home, or you could go to my website www.preparingthehome.co.uk.
That's it. Preparing the home. Lots of ideas around routine, and routine helps to build connection. And
Definitely.
that's what's important. It really does help to build connection. It gives them this certainty, that this thing is going to happen at this time. It just builds safety, doesn't it? I
It,
know what's going to happen. If they're not at home and it's 1 o'clock, they know what would be happening at home at 1 o'clock. It's just
mhm.
the safety.
It's all okay.
All right. Thank you for Kashina for coming. Thank you all for listening to this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join us on the next story.